What if the suffering in your life is not a mistake? What if the pain you've been trying to escape is actually the very thing guiding you toward truth? Most people spend their lives trying to eliminate suffering. They chase comfort, security, control, and yet suffering always returns in loss, in uncertainty, in the quiet moments when something inside you whispers, there must be more than this. But according to the great spiritual master, Anandamayi Ma, suffering is not your enemy. In fact, she said something astonishing. Suffering may be the divine calling you back home, not to punish you, but to wake you up. You try to escape suffering. You try to fix it, understand it, silence it. Yet no matter how far you run, it returns, in loss, in uncertainty, in the quiet ache that appears when life doesn't go the way you hoped. And in those moments, a question slowly rises inside you. Why does life hurt so much? Most people spend their lives trying to eliminate suffering. They search for comfort, security, recognition, love, believing that if they arrange life in the right way, suffering will finally disappear. But somehow, it never does. Even when everything seems right, something still feels incomplete. And this is where a surprising possibility appears. What if suffering is not a mistake of life? What if the pain you've been trying to escape is actually pointing you towards something deeper? The great spiritual teacher, Anandamayi Ma, offered a perspective that quietly overturns the way most of us see suffering. She said that the root of all human pain is not the world itself. It is the feeling of separation, the belief that we are isolated individuals, separate from life, separate from others, separate from the divine. From childhood, we learn to identify ourselves as a body, a mind, a personality moving through a world of others. And from that moment, duality begins. There is me, and there is the world. There is gain, and there is loss. There is pleasure, and there is pain. But according to Anandamayi Ma, this division is not the ultimate truth. It is a perception, a veil. She once said that all sorrow comes from seeing many where there is only one. Think about that for a moment. If existence is truly one indivisible reality, then the suffering created by division is like a dream in which we have forgotten who we are, and so life begins to move in mysterious ways, sometimes gently, sometimes forcefully. Moments of loss appear, plans collapse, attachments slip from our hands, and in those moments, something within us is shaken. The mind calls it tragedy, but from a deeper perspective, something else may be happening. Anandamayi Ma taught that suffering often appears as a reminder, a call to turn our attention back toward what is real. She compared suffering to fire. Just as fire burns away impurities from metal, suffering can burn away the illusions we cling to, not because life is cruel, but because the heart longs for truth. Most of the time, we become deeply attached to the things of the world, possessions, status, relationships, ideas about who we are, and slowly, without realizing it, these attachments become the center of our identity. We begin to believe that happiness depends on them, that fulfillment will come from achieving just one more goal, securing one more certainty, receiving one more form of love. But the happiness that depends on conditions is fragile. It rises and falls with circumstances, and somewhere deep within, we sense this instability. That is why suffering has such a strange power. It disrupts the illusion. When something we depended on disappears, the mind is forced to confront a deeper question. Where does true fulfillment actually come from? Anandamayi Ma sometimes explained suffering through a simple image. Imagine a mother bathing her child. The child may cry and struggle, believing something unpleasant is happening. But the mother continues washing because she knows it is necessary. In the same way, she said, the divine sometimes purifies the heart through difficult experiences, not as punishment, but as preparation. The soul longs to return to its source, and anything that prevents this return must eventually be released. That is why the loss of worldly attachments, though painful, can become a doorway. It reveals how much power external things hold over the mind. When wealth is lost, we see our attachment to security. When recognition fades, we see our attachment to identity. When relationships change, we see our attachment to emotional comfort. These revelations are not meant to discourage us. They are invitations. Invitations to discover something within ourselves that cannot be taken away. Something deeper than circumstances. Something deeper than the restless movement of the mind. But how does one begin this journey? Anandamayi Ma often spoke about a simple orientation of the heart. First, recognize that suffering is not meaningless. Even when it feels overwhelming, it carries a hidden movement toward awakening. Second, develop patience. The mind wants immediate relief, but spiritual understanding unfolds slowly, like a flower opening to the sun. And third, gently turn your awareness toward the divine. This does not require complicated rituals or extraordinary abilities. It can begin in the simplest ways, through remembrance, through prayer, through quiet moments of reflection. When the mind becomes overwhelmed by circumstances, instead of being pulled entirely into the storm, something inside can turn toward the deeper presence that sustains life itself. At first, this may feel subtle, almost invisible, but gradually, something begins to shift. You start to see that life is not only a series of external events. There is an underlying intelligence, a movement guiding everything, even the moments you once called misfortune. And slowly, a different relationship with suffering emerges. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" another question appears. What is this experience showing me? This shift is profound because it transforms suffering from an enemy into a teacher. And as this understanding deepens, something remarkable begins to happen. The grip of suffering loosens, not because life suddenly becomes free of challenges, but because the sense of separation begins to dissolve. You start to perceive moments of unity, a quiet awareness that the same life moving within you is moving through everything. The trees, the wind, the people you meet, the silence between thoughts. And in those moments, the search for happiness in external conditions begins to lose its urgency. A deeper contentment quietly appears. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just a simple sense of being aligned with something vast and timeless. Anandamayi Ma described this realization as discovering the One everywhere, in every circumstance, in every being. When this recognition matures, suffering no longer holds the same power, because the mind understands that everything arises within the same indivisible reality. The play of gain and loss continues, but the heart rests in something beyond both. And perhaps this is why she said that suffering can be a hidden blessing. It keeps the human being from becoming completely satisfied with what is temporary. It prevents us from settling for illusions, and gently, sometimes painfully, it pushes us toward the eternal. So, if you are passing through a difficult moment right now, remember this: the experience you are facing may not be the end of your path. It may be the beginning of a deeper awakening, a moment where life itself is inviting you to look beyond appearances, to rediscover what has always been present, the one that exists within everything. If this reflection resonated with you, consider walking a little further on this journey with us. There are many teachings, many perspectives, many quiet discoveries waiting to unfold, and perhaps the next step of your understanding is closer than you think. For now, just leave this question gently resting in your awareness. If suffering is guiding you back to truth, what might life be trying to show you right now?